Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, and it's time for the hurricane video discussion for Hurricane and Hurricane HD. Tropics getting a little bit more active here as we round out the month of June. We got 10 days left in the month. The first day of summer, too, today, so happy summer. We can see this blue area, this powder blue, showing where development is possible. So we've moved from unlikely, which is all the rest of the gray area, to the blue, which is possible, and we don't see any orange right now. Basically, this in association with the favorable MJO pulse moving through and the weak surface trough that extends here into the Caribbean and portions of the southeast Gulf, and a little bit of disturbed weather off the coast of Mexico. Of course, we have Tropical Storm Chris, a very strange system up over very cold water, relatively speaking. And we'll look at that here. You can see from the National Hurricane Center's Tropical Weather Outlook map, there is Chris, centered up here in the North Atlantic, well to the southeast of Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, and it's moving east-southeast, and it may come over and bother the Azores Islands. It's hard to tell with some of these ocean storms. Their energy can get stretched out over a fairly large area. And then we do have this area down in the southeast Gulf, northwest Caribbean. 20% chance of development. Will probably increase over time, and I will show you why. Out in the tropical Atlantic, we have the intertropical convergence zone here, where the trades from the northern hemisphere meet the trades from the southern hemisphere. They collide, and you get that upward motion. It's been my experience that when you see it flat like this, you're not going to see any development, because high pressure at a good deal of the atmosphere is squashing development, kind of like keeping a lid or a blanket on a fire. And there are tropical waves, though, these pulses of energy that roll off of Africa and then head westward. They are coming off. There's one in here, but it's still a little early to be looking for those of any significance. Alright, so here's a close-up of Tropical Storm Chris. Fairly healthy, amazingly so, because it's over fairly cool sea surface temperatures. And you can see the latitude, longitude, it's just west of 50 here and sitting at about 38 degrees north. And that's fairly far to the north. And let's look at that on a sea surface temperature map. There's 40 degrees north latitude and 50 degrees west longitude, splits down the middle here. Chris located about right in here. So let's take the telestration away and we'll pinpoint that again just by circling it. Chris located right in here, and these sea surface temperatures only about 21, 22 degrees Celsius. So cold water by most definitions, I would think. What we're looking for is the 26 degrees Celsius line, which is about 79 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's way down here to the south. Chris far to the north of that. So there's different processes going on that are allowing Chris to generate that limited yet persistent convection, that yellow area around the center. And it is all by itself. It's its own entity wrapped up. It's not attached to a front. So it is tropical in nature, even though it's not over tropical waters. Very strange, kind of a different system. And fortunately not going to be a threat to any land areas that I can see. Now, looking at this trough of low pressure stretched out across portions of the southeast Gulf and adjacent coastal and land regions. Florida in for some heavy rain off and on, as is Cuba, and portions of the Bahamas. Just a messy situation as this system festers. It looks like the energy is going to meander into the Gulf here, and low pressure should develop somewhere north of the Yucatan. Beyond that, it's interesting to speculate what might happen, and we'll use the GFS model here in a minute to examine the possibilities. You can see scattered, moderate to heavy rain in some cases over the southern part of Florida and in the adjacent coastal waters. That's just going to be the way it is for the next day or two as the system moves over into the Gulf, and then it may come back, and we'll look at that on the GFS model. It may come back as a stronger system down the road. So this is the operational global forecast system, the GFS model, valid tomorrow morning. So this will be valid on Thursday morning around 8 a.m. And we here have the Yucatan and the parts of Central America Nicaragua and Honduras. Here is Cuba, and here is Florida, just to outline what's what. We see the GFS depicting low pressure forming and closing off just along the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula here. Everything else, the shower and thunderstorm activity, kind of disorganized. But you do see low pressure developing as you do have a closed off set of these wind barbs. They go in a full 360-degree counterclockwise fashion around this 1009 surface low north of the Yucatan. So interesting to see the GFS trying to close this off finally at 48 hours, valid on Friday morning. It's a little bit more defined. You can definitely see the curvature of these wind barbs as they come in here and close off the low, now down to 1004 millibars. But what you don't see is a very well-defined system. A lot of the shower and thunderstorm activity, as evidenced by this precip, this is the previous 6 hours precipitation forecast, is over on the east side of the storm, not so much on the west side. So we don't see it, a classic signature to it. So it leads me to believe this will be fairly loosely organized, but a big rainmaker in kind of stormy conditions in the Gulf. Finally, at 72 hours, it hangs in there at about 1004 millibars, moving into the open central Gulf of Mexico here. Pretty large circulation, very large diffuse storm system, high pressure over the western Atlantic, keeping it from moving too much, and if anything, more to the northwest. But then, over time, it looks like after the 72-hour mark, once we get through the weekend, this might try to hook back to the east-northeast across Florida as a trough digs in across the lower 48 here, the eastern part of the country, and sweeps this whole mess off to the northeast. So you folks in Florida may get a little bit of a break as this goes by more to the northwest, but then we'll have to look for the possibility of tropical storm conditions for portions of the Florida Peninsula as we get into early next week. And I will address that more each day as we get closer to that time period. I'll talk about it again tomorrow. So in the eastern Pacific, things are calming down there after quite a busy period with Aletta, Bud, and most recently Carlotta. So we'll be watching the Gulf closely for the possibility of the D storm forming, which would be Debbie, and that might come early next week. I don't see any indication that it would be too strong or anything to worry about in terms of intensity, but it could be a disruptive system with heavy rain and the possibility of tropical storm conditions somewhere along the west coast of Florida, the peninsula, in the early part of next week. So stay tuned as we discuss that tomorrow. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, my website, hurricanetrack.com, and I'm glad to provide these video blogs for you on Hurricane and Hurricane HD. Have yourselves a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.